Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And thank you guys for sticking around. I actually got some views on my past two videos, so I'm super surprised that people are actually watching this type of content. But thank you for sticking around. Today I was going to talk a little bit more about guilt and navigating guilt in failed relationships as I'm currently doing right now. Honestly, I'm recording this video on a whim, so like I really don't know what I'm about to say, but I think this is going to be some pretty cool things which I've been thinking about for quite some time now. So it's been, I think, 10 days, almost 11 days since the breakup. So I have a lot of things which are on my mind right now, which I think I might want to share with y'all. So number one thing is that when I talk about guilt, I'm talking about kind of like the idea that you didn't succeed in the relationship because of the things you did, which causes the guilt within you. So it's kind of similar to regret, but that regret kind of gets manifested into this overwhelming guilt which bottles up inside you. And to be honest, for me, I think that was the case for my relationship. It's because during my relationship, I understood that I didn't really enjoy a lot of time with them. And so a lot of my words, a lot of my actions felt really dull to them. I think that a lot of that stemmed from a lot of different things, actually. And I'll get to kind of that maybe a bit later. But I think what I wanted to talk about today is that guilt really isn't, it isn't your fault, kind of. That's kind of what I wanted to take as like the main point in this entire video, is that no matter how guilty you feel, I think at the end of the day, it isn't your fault. And I think it might feel weird because, for example, I feel constantly, and I think this is like the biggest thing which I'm dealing with right now. Like after the initial just like week of grief for me, it now is just like the second week for me, and it's kind of just like this overwhelming guilt, which I have that, I didn't do it right, or I could have done better. I think there's these moments of clarity which I gain, let's say after I work out or after I go on a run, which I just did today, that I realize like it really isn't about whose fault it is per se. I think in any relationship, like unless like it's some like really crazy thing, like you were like really manipulative, purposely, maliciously, like I genuinely don't think that's like, first of all, I don't think that's like a really like a possibility we should be analyzing here. I think the majority of people, if not all people or most people, are not going to be that kind of person, right? And so what I'm trying to say right now is that in a failed relationship, it really isn't your fault. It really is not your fault. And I think one thing which I've been really wrestling with recently is like my friends telling me that it kind of is my fault, right? Because, and I even feel convinced of it sometimes too. Like even right now, it seems like maybe what they're saying is true. But I think at the end of the day, when I go back to it, I realize that, you know, I should be kind to the part of myself that acted the way he did like 10 days ago, right? Or if months ago when I was in the relationship, right? Like during the relationship, I had to be kind to the part of myself and say, yeah, you know what? I acted as the best I could, right? I did the best I could, and I shouldn't be shamed. I shouldn't condemn myself for the actions which I did. And yeah, I think it's easy for us to be guilty if we have a lot of self-doubt. For me personally, I'll explain a little bit of the situation, is that a lot of times I was enjoying time with my friends more than I was with my girlfriend, or I guess the surface level is kind of, that's what it seemed like. And I think that to an extent, that is true. I think that the more times I kind of reflect on that, the more times I kind of, think about it though, is like, that isn't really the black and white perspective which I saw. I think the cause of the breakup, in my opinion, probably was that that my ex's belief that I wasn't enjoying time with her. I wasn't really reciprocating feelings. Therefore, she cut it off and she said, "This is not a relationship I want to be in." And that's fair, 100%. And you know what? I recognize it too. Like, That's fair. But one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to blame myself for it. I think that if you want to learn from a relationship, that's one thing. But if you want to shame yourself, condemn yourself, guilt yourself to the point where, you can't even think properly, that's another thing. I think the fact that, you're even watching this video from some random guy, right? And that you're willing to grow, it shows that you don't need to put yourself in such a guilty position to kind of force yourself to grow. Because I think that's been my excuse for, the last couple of while of like, oh, if I'm not this guilty, I won't be able to acknowledge the truth and I won't be able to grow. But you can grow without being extremely guilty. I think it's a misconception that we might have, and I think that's one of the things which I want to talk about is like, it's not your fault, man. And you know what? You can still grow without having to completely say that it was just your fault. Yeah. I think, by acknowledging a lot of the guilt when I was like, and I still do, I think like today I was like under the pressure of so much guilt today. Like when I was thinking about it, right? There's these moments that I realized like the relationship was so much more gray than it was black and white. The times where I would feel the most, the times that I reflect back, which made me feel the most guilty, I go back and I kind of try to put myself in the situation. And sometimes I realize, the reason I did the things I did was because of actions that were done throughout the relationship. Maybe from her, maybe from me, maybe from outside circumstances, maybe from this built up resentment that caused this disconnect between two people. And you know what? I think that in all cases, right, there is faults between people and but the breakup in the relationship should not be focused on hyper fixating on who's the most guilty, who has the most faults, and who is the one which is the wrong person in the relationship. Yeah, I think it's easy for us to go down that path and really spiral into this notion of like, oh, I did it all wrong. And the regret leads to guilt, the guilt leads to regret, the regret leads to guilt, and so on, right? And it really keeps you stuck in a position where you're unable to truly get out. And I think that's something that I've been noticing within myself and something I just wanted to share with you guys here to kind of express what I've been dealing with and what I think might be useful. And the ultimate takeaway is that it's not your fault. It shouldn't be about faults because, that's not the reason the relationship ends. It's because of disconnect. It's because of a variety of factors we can't control. So yeah, I like to kind of mention, some of my points there, give a new perspective maybe to people who didn't, who maybe to people who are feeling really guilty, who are feeling extremely anxious, like thinking to themselves, this is my fault, I did this, right? I want to let you all know that it isn't your fault. It isn't your fault at all. And you can acknowledge that and still grow. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm so surprised that people actually watch this. Even if it's like 10 people, I'm actually so surprised. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I might try posting a more like structured videos sometime soon because this is super messy and all. But yeah, I actually want to post a lot more videos because I have a lot more thoughts going on. So, feel free to suggest anything and stay tuned for some new videos, man. I love you guys, and I hope you guys can share some of your thoughts, and I hope to be able to relate to you guys as well because, this is definitely something tough, which I am going through myself, and I think a lot of people here might be able to help me, and I might be able to help you guys as well. Thank you.